Hey guys, David here and welcome to the Fit Pro Daily. This week is all about content, specifically when it comes to emails, social media posts and Facebook ads. And today we're going to invite Matt on. Matt is going to share with us ideas on how to never ever run out of social media and email content ideas ever again. So if you're sat there with your laptop open, you want to write a mega post, an amazing post, something that's going to inspire people, encourage people, and want to get people to join your fitness business, then you'll definitely want to go and check out today's guest interview. But before we do dive into today's guest interview, if you haven't subscribed, make sure you do by clicking that big red button below. That way you'll never miss any future interviews. But for now, let's dive straight into today's interview with Matt. Good afternoon, guys, and welcome to today's special guest interview. Today, we have Matt with us. Matt's going to kind of cover an interesting topic of content, because we all kind of got to that point where some days we suddenly go completely blank with what it is we're going to talk about. So Matt's hopefully, I think he's got 5 tips he's going to share with us in total on never really struggling for content or email ideas again. So welcome, Matt. How are things?
Yeah, mate, not too bad, not too bad.
Good man. So Matt is down on the south coast, is that right, in Bournemouth?
It is. Oh no, I've moved to Southsea, so not too long ago actually.
Okay,
yeah, relocated to Southsea. So
still always sunny down on the south coast.
Yeah, not too bad. It's not too bad.
So this question I ask everybody at the start of every single interview is, how did you get started in the fitness industry yourself?
When I was younger, I was always been interested in fitness, just lifting weights, doing parkour, which is the majority of my exercise. So for those that don't know, it's jumping off things and landing on things. I started my career in a commercial gym setting about 4 or 5 years ago as a gym instructor. Okay. I was enjoying that kind of aspect of training clients and stuff, which was fine. But I didn't like to be managed. So I kind of quit the gym and went into a more self-employed basis at Pure Gym. And I was enjoying that, was picking up clients, went full time with this. But I was doing something every day that I was enjoying more. And that was kind of writing in my emails and just putting out content. But at the time, I had no idea that what I was doing was actually copywriting. But that was the aspect I was enjoying more than actually training clients. So I moved on from being self-employed, essentially. Met a guy called Mike Samuels. I don't know if you guys would recognize him. Signed up to one of his mentorship courses and just got kickstarted in copywriting and just fell in love with it.
Nice. Okay. So let's kind of dive into your previous background. Why did you start writing loads of content for your clients initially, or to generate leads for clients?
I'm quite creative. I just like writing things down. So if I'm like doing anything and it's interesting, I always trying to think of ways I can link it in with the content I was putting out. So if I was going out on a run, or if I was going on holiday, I just like to write some sort of content to give value, but also link it in with the client I'm trying to talk to. Just enjoying that kind of aspect. I'm a bit of a nerd at heart as well. So just love telling stories. I love reading stories. And I guess it's that kind of creative side that I really enjoyed. And I was posting like 3-4 times a day initially and doing emails. Still kind of do that now, just not on Facebook.
Yeah. So what you were doing before then, were these long posts or short posts, or were you kind of just putting out whatever you felt like, what felt good at the time?
A mixture, right? Long and short. I'd say long and short posts, depending on how I felt at the time. If I was like strapped for time, then maybe I'll just do like a quick, nice, like top tip kind of post. Or if I had a bit more time free, it'd be a longer post, essentially. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. And did you start noticing, obviously, before you actually really got into copywriting seriously and everything, did you start noticing that when you were putting specific content out, it actually brought you a load more interest, a load more leads, and people that wanted to join you?
Yeah, 100%. It definitely did. There were moments though, I'm sure a lot of people can resonate, when I was putting out content, but there was nobody to reciprocate. So it was like, I'm putting out all this good content and no one say anything back, so I must be doing something wrong.
Yeah.
Which I wasn't dialing in on who I was actually talking to.
Okay.
So as opposed to taking that as, oh, I'm rubbish at putting out content, I was, okay, so how can I be a bit more specific to who I'm talking to? And then I kind of like dialed it back, changed it. And since doing that, or when I was doing that, it resonated with people more and was getting better feedback from the content, which is cool.
Nice. Okay. And now you've almost come full circle where you started off as the PT and enjoying the writing, and now you're actually doing this as like a full-time income, really, yeah?
Yeah. Doing it as a full-time income now, which is cool. Quit the gym. So yeah, it's nice. It's nice. I never saw myself moving this because, let's be honest, I failed at English. I was rubbish in school. So writing was like, yeah, I'm not going to be a writer, but no, copy, there's something different. It's far more enjoyable.
Okay, so let's kind of dive into it then. You said, or when we kind of spoke just before starting this, that there was 5 or potentially 6 tips that you were going to talk about.
Yes.
Let's kind of dive into it then.
Cool. So the first thing first, and the most important thing is, it's going to be super, super boring, but you have to know who it is you are talking to, because you can be putting out content and you could be thinking it's really, really good, but there's an 80-year-old woman who it resonates more with, but your target is maybe a 30-year-old stay-at-home mum who's struggling with dieting, but the content that you put out doesn't resonate with them, it resonates with someone else. So first thing is to survey your audience. You need to know who you're talking out. So you can do this using like Instagram polls. You can use SurveyMonkey, and you can just put down 5 questions, like what their struggles are, what they've tried in the past. And already, even if you're new to like fitness or you're new to putting out content, people you're surveying are giving you content to talk about in their surveys. So that's a really good starting point, is understanding who you are actually talking to. So that would be number 1, essentially.
So just sticking with that, then something I would also agree with is every time you're doing a consultation or speaking to a client, whether it's on a Facebook Messenger or phone, whatever they're saying, write it down, have it stored somewhere. He's gone. Hello?
Hey, so I think you froze. The moment I finished, you froze. Sorry.
No, that's okay. Can you hear me okay now, though?
Yeah, I need to get a MacBook or something.
No, that's okay. So I was saying, like, another way of generating like this information about your target audience was every time you do a consultation or every time you're speaking with clients on Facebook, on face-to-face or something, you're writing all the notes down of the stuff that they're talking about, I'm guessing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you could be having conversations. So when I was a PT in the gym, they're giving you content. So if you want to never run out of content, speak to your clients. If you're training in the gym, if you've got online clients now, I guarantee they've got so many things that they've got on their minds that if you just ask them, a little bit more about them, what they're struggling with, they'll tell you. So, when I was a personal trainer and I was like chatting to my clients, they'll tell me about their weekend, their funny stories, things that they tried and why it didn't work. Sometimes it'd be embarrassing, but it's content. It's something you can definitely put out as an email, as a post, anything really, a video. It's a great starting point because you could start anything with. The other day I was chatting with my client in the gym, and she or he said this X, Y, and Z, and it made me think. And then that's a great premise to start with anything really. So that's like if anything out of these tips, definitely speak to the to your existing clients now.
Okay.
Because definitely. So I do waffle on, so do tell me if I do waffle on.
So let's move into number 2 then. So number 1 is obviously your target audience. Number 2.
So number 2 is it's another thing I came up with the other day, and it's basically creating a tree. So you can visualize this, or you can write it down, you can draw it. Essentially, once you've surveyed your audience and you know your ideal client, the trunk is your ideal client, and then the branches are going to be the content that you're going to be talking about. So It could be four things: their beliefs, their outcomes or desires or their dreams, um, their lifestyles at the moment, and their objections, so things that they struggle with. And that's going to form basically the premise of content that you're going to put out, if that makes sense. So like a family tree, now you've got five stalks, essentially, five like branches. Each one of those can then be elaborated on. So let's say you start with an objection. Why are they struggling? What's their challenges, for instance? And then you basically reel off what they're struggling with. Could be like lack of time. Could be they don't have the motivation. They're struggling to get leads. They've tried things in the past and didn't work. And already you're reading off content ideas just from that one branch, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then on top of that, you can elaborate even more on those things that you've just added to that branch. So it's just like a family tree where you find one person, it then gives you five more, and then those five people have another five things to talk about. You could basically always you never really run out of content on just one branch. So that's a method I found that's really, really helpful. It takes a little bit more time because you've got to sit down, you've got to draw it out and stuff. But it's definitely helpful to really dial in who it is you're speaking to.
Nice. Okay, let's move into number 3 then. So we've got target audience, creating that tree so you know what angles to kind of talk about. Where do we go from there then?
Forums, 100% forums. Again, places like Reddit or Facebook groups. So there's a lot of fat loss free groups you can join as well. People are in there telling you everything about them, their problems, what they're struggling with, their experiences with certain types of diets or certain types of trainers, or if you can even find stuff from gym owners, anything in a forum you can find. Essentially, you can even find things in vacuums. But so if you struggle with content, you can literally just type in on Google, say it's a fat loss client, you can type in struggle with fat loss Reddit, and then you will have so much content from the blog posts that people are putting down. You'll probably never run out of content just from doing that, because someone might put a big chunk of information that could basically serve all of your content for the rest of the week or month. You can just pull ideas from, essentially. So yeah, I'll definitely do forums.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, and the next one is similar to forums. It's like community groups, if you can get into any. There's a lot when it comes to fat loss, because people are in there asking for help, but they're being bombarded by people who are selling fads and stuff like that, and getting really bad information. Again, you can turn that into content, essentially, and pull what they're saying into content. Does that make sense?
No, that's great idea. Yeah. So because it's almost directly from the horse's mouth. They're literally telling you what they're struggling with, or other people are answering their questions. So it's giving you things to either work off, or you can give a better example or better definition of what it is to talk about. Yeah.
Exactly. You don't need to reinvent the wheel, as it were, because people are actually telling you. It's like if you're speaking to your clients, they're telling you what their struggles are. It's just this way you're hearing from people who aren't your clients, but they're also telling you what their struggles are, just to someone else.
Nice. Okay. So let's move into step 4 then.
Step 4 is your experiences and about you. You're interesting. You're really interesting. Everyone has a story. Everyone has an experience. If you're a gym owner, you've got experiences that have led you to be where you are now. Your struggles, things that you might have got wrong, mistakes you may have made. It's the same as if you are a trainer. You probably haven't always been a trainer. You've probably done something else before that. You probably had a different set of beliefs, a different set of feelings. And you can just basically talk about your experiences as a coach, as anyone really, and you can just reel off content just from using that.
Do you always have to relate it back to your target audience? Say if it's not something specific, maybe it was you're talking about a time you were in a car crash or something like that. Do you always have to relate it back, or do you kind of leave the story on a knife edge, like a cliffhanger, where they don't know where the next installment is coming in from?
Of course. No, you don't always have to talk about your ideal client at all, because it's always nice as well to get a feel for who you are as a person anyway. And you know, your story may not even resonate with your ideal client, but to them it might be interesting because that's a different side of you that they probably didn't know about.
Yeah.
And because you're being more open and honest, and you know, maybe a bit embarrassing, maybe a bit fun, or you know, isolating as it were, so that whole villain and good guy, bad guy kind of thing. You're separating your audience, but people are going to be interested in you essentially. So it builds more of a trust value.
Yeah, I was going to say, no, like, and trust. They get to really know you deep personally. So when you do make that offer, they can either relate or they trust you enough that they are happy to reach out. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. And the fifth one?
So the fifth one is your environment. So it's kind of like, I guess, like your experiences, but your environment. So like what's around you. For example, there's been times where I've been in like a coffee shop and I've overheard a conversation that's just sparked, oh, you know, the other day I sat in the coffee shop, minding my own business, doing X, Y, and Z, when I overheard a conversation and they were talking about, you know, something like fat loss, or they were talking about not being able to pick up clients, or, you know, these kind of things. So hearing out in terms of that way really helps. Also what you have at your disposal. So for instance, I've got a clock on my table, I've got a table, and I've got a book. You can pull ideas and content from these objects and items as well. So if I struggle with content, for instance, I can look at a clock, and that can give me so much. I know it sounds really weird, but a clock could give me so much information, because what does that represent? It represents time. What do people struggle with? Maybe prioritizing their time. They might be overestimating how long it takes to get their results. They may be underestimating it. They may feel that they need to, you know, spend hours and hours a day in the gym when really they don't, because it's all pulled back from time, essentially. And the thing, like, you can talk about like historical characters. So I like to say like Picasso. There was a really cool story about Picasso who basically did a painting on a napkin, or did a quick sketch on a napkin, and he charged 30 grand for it, essentially. And the woman was a bit amazed by how much he was charging, but he had spent 10 years prior to that, don't quote me on that, but something like that, to get to that level where he could draw that good, essentially. So in essence, you can talk about time, and how being patient and things like that can...
Just from one object. Yeah,
just from one object.
Then did you say there was a sixth, or potential sixth one?
So the sixth one is basically history, or news content. So you could be watching a film, you could be reading a newspaper, you could be Googling or reading a book, and you can try and find ways in which you can relate things back to something. So I was reading a book and it said something about, what was it? Everyone knows about it. It's like Rome wasn't built in a day. All right. And that's just basically, you can talk about how Rome wasn't built in a day, but that's related to like building foundations and habits, and why habits are important. And you know, if you don't have good habits in place, then things will crumble. And you know, that gives you loads of different content to talk about, essentially. Interesting news articles, things that you find weird and funny. Again, you can try and relate it back into an email or a piece of content, essentially.
No, that's definitely good. Yeah. Because like you say, things that are going on popular now, maybe I'm a Celebrity, I'm guessing is still on the TV. So potentially you could talk about that or relate that in some way at all. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So with these six kind of different things we've covered now to generate you the information, or just like ideas on what to write for the content, what type of content sizes are we putting out? Are we always putting out a long piece every day? Are we putting a short piece? Or is there different types of ways we're going to produce this content instead of just a long post or a short post?
So quite a few people have different strategies in which they like to put out content. I know someone who did so that Monday they did like an informative post. So that could have been like an infographic with like some tips. It could have just been a quick video, nothing too long, but it could just be a bit more informative. I think Wednesday they did like a myth bust. So they are busting a myth and something. And then Friday they were talking about a client. So they weren't posting every day. They were just posting three times a week, but they were posting out good content. And that's the main thing essentially. So if you wanted to make everything a bit more structured, you could always come up with a way with, right, okay, so Monday, my content is going to be based around informative information. Tuesday, it could be based around fat loss myth or a myth in the fitness industry. Like Wednesday, it could be something about an objection, so what someone's struggling with. And then the fourth day could be another thing about your services and what you offer. And then the fifth thing could be your client's results or just a story essentially. So
Yeah.
you can kind of structure it that way.
Okay. So let's move on then. So when obviously we were in school, we had to be super punctual with our writing style and all this type of stuff. Is this kind of the same nowadays when it comes to writing content on emails and Facebook posts and stuff, or should we be writing slightly different to how we were taught in school?
So in terms of copywriting, you're writing completely different when you're putting out emails and stuff, because you put gaps in between lines and do super short sentences and stuff like that. But when it comes to putting out content, I wouldn't worry so much because the person, if they're interested in who you are, they're not going to worry too much about your grammar or if you've made a spelling mistake and stuff, unless you're selling something, in which case it might be a bit more important to dial in on your grammar and your words. For instance, if you're working like I am with a client where it is important to have the right punctuation. But if you're just putting out content and stuff, don't worry too much.
So any tips on the layout or the design of this content when it comes to social media? Like, are we putting really, really long paragraphs, or are we keeping the short sentences? So what kind of makes people want to keep reading? I'm trying to get to.
So what makes people want to read is something like a good start, a good intro, something that's not boring or has been said 1,000 times. So if you can like put the first line as something quite interesting, like the other day I put something like why you shouldn't deep throat a cactus. Okay, that sounds a bit weird, but I was relating that to basically exercise and it being painful and it being not something you want to do. But it was just an interesting way to say it, that kind of thing. But in terms of how you want to lay the content out, it doesn't really matter too much because I know people who do really, really well, who write pretty much paragraph chunks of content. I know people who just write quick lines and short sentences. It depends really who your audience are and whether they're going to like want to read something that's like a paragraph, or they're just too busy to do that and just want to read like a quick sentence like a CEO or someone like that.
Yeah. So good, let's stick with that headline then, and the headline you just talked about. Do the headlines always need to be some sort of clickbait headline to kind of get the person to want to read it, or talk to me more about headlines basically?
So headlines are good when you're doing landing pages or sales pages or a subject line in an email. You kind of want it to be interesting or a bit of curiosity. You don't really want to have them to clickbait something. So like you put something in a subject line, for instance, if it's going out to an email, but then you don't talk about that thing at all, because that can really annoy someone. So if you do make your subject line curiosity based, make sure that in that email you are talking about the subject line or touching on it briefly to not annoy anyone. But when it comes to actually like social media content, you don't need to worry about like coming up with a headline or anything. You can just start wherever you wish to start essentially. You can just start talking about your day, a good way to do it.
Okay. And then the last question I had really was, should you be bulk writing? So should you sit down on a Sunday morning with a little coffee with the wind blowing and the birds tweeting and just write all your content for the week there? Or should you kind of just do it on the fly as you go? And when you get something pops in your head, you write it in your notes on your phone and then you just make it up as you go along?
Good question. So there's going to be days where you're going to be sat at home or in the evening and you're going to think to yourself, I can't think of any content. You'll write a sentence and you'll delete it. You'll write a paragraph and you'll delete it. And there's going to be days where it'll just come flowing naturally. On those days, if you do get those days where you just kind of reels off, I would just continue to write as much content as you can. But if you're really struggling, best thing to do is go out for a walk. And just because you just start getting a bit more creative with your mind and stuff. And you can start writing content just by getting your steps in, essentially, because that really helps jog the brain a little bit. So it's personal preference if you want to bulk your content and then like schedule it. I know some people do that, and it's a really good way to do it because then they can focus on other aspects of their business, their life, etc.
Yeah.
Or like me, I can just kind of like bang out a post on the same day within like 10 minutes or something or less.
Okay. And then less you mentioned about that person who was posting 3 times a week. Is it important to be consistent? Like if you're going to post 3 times a week and you're going to send an email 3 times a week, is it important to be consistent, or can you kind of be a little bit all over the place with your content?
Yeah, good question. So I know like the algorithm changes up and down, so I can't say anything on that respect, but in terms of being consistent, it does help because then people know that they're expecting something from you. So if you've been posting 3 days a week consistently for weeks on end, and then you suddenly don't post anymore, they might think, where's he gone? What's happened, kind of thing. So it can be helpful. Yeah, it can be helpful being consistent, especially when it comes to emails, because I think what happens is people, if they don't get anything back from their email, they may feel that people aren't reading it, or with their content, they may also feel that people aren't reading it. But they may actually do so. But that could be enough to make them stop writing content, or it could be enough to stop writing emails. But there could be people reading those emails or that content who was really, really enjoying those emails and that content. And then you suddenly stopped. And it's like, oh, where they gone, kind of thing. So yeah, it is important to like be consistent in some way.
Yeah, because that's definitely the thing with writing emails, especially emails or social posts. That kind of is the long game where we talk about Facebook ads all the time. You put your money in and your money should come out relatively quickly on the other side. Oh. But when you're writing your emails or your social posts, you are going a much longer route of providing value, trust and everything over the couple of weeks. And then when you're finally ready to put the offer out, they should know you well enough to be confident enough to take the offer. Yeah,
exactly. Because I had 2 people email me a few months back when I was doing some online stuff, who I didn't even know at the time. They had been just enjoying the emails I was writing, but I was kind of being like, I didn't think anyone was kind of listening. But yeah, they were. So sorry, last year, not last month, but yeah.
No, that's good. Okay. And then just finally, let's kind of talk about the difference between general emails that you're just talking about, all these stuff that we've talked about so far, and a sales email. Is a significant difference in the writing styles, the layout and everything? Should the sales email be properly written and structured in a certain way, or can that kind of be free flowing like we've been talking about the other posts?
So when it comes to like, if you've got an offer and you want to launch it, so like a program or something you want to release to your audience, then it's good to kind of build some excitement at the beginning. So you might just hint to the fact that something's coming in like the PS section, like, you be sure to open the next email because, this and that is coming next. So, open it essentially. But in terms of the sales emails, you want to have a bit more urgency, you want a bit more scarcity. You really need to pick out their pain points and their desires as well. Yeah. So what it is they're really struggling with, go deep on that, but then show you how your program will help them solve that problem, essentially. But when it comes to just general emails, all you're trying to do there is just connect with your audience, show them who you are, give value, free information. So when you do come up to have an offer, they're going to be more warmer and ready to essentially buy from you because you'll be giving them value essentially.
Definitely. Okay. So to finish this then, I know we've talked about the 6 points and everything that you've already covered already. Is there any final few tips or final nuggets that you say people should kind of really work with to be able to never, actually, like you say, never run out of content or email ideas again?
Yeah, get out of the way of yourself because it quite literally, everyone tries to be a perfectionist. So if they can't think of the perfect piece of content, they won't post it. You need to try and get out of that frame of mind. Everything's going to be perfect all the time, because there isn't a perfect piece of content. Content's going to hit, content's going to miss. So if you've got something you want to share it. Just don't get too like deep with, oh, but this doesn't sound good. This could sound better. Just post it and see what kind of response you get.
No, that's great. Perfect. So people listening to this or watching this further down the line, how can they find out a little bit more about what it is you do? And then maybe if they like what you're talking about, how could they potentially reach out about your services?
So I don't have a website or anything. Is there a way I can put an email address somewhere?
Yeah. If you just want to say it now, then people listening.
Yeah, so my email is matthew.tickner25, so that's the number 25 at gmail.com. If you're interested in like the copywriting side of things, having someone write your emails, maybe it's a launch sequence or an autoresponder after they've downloaded a free thing, more than happy to have a chat and jump on a phone call, definitely.
Yeah. Or like you say, you'll be tagged in this post, so they can just find you tagged in this post and kind of reach out and go from there.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah.
Okay, and that was Matt. What a great interview it was. And you could see how passionate he was about the whole creating content side of things, whether it was for your social media, for your emails, for your Facebook ads, okay? And he gave some great insights and tips on how to do it with best practice. So if you haven't taken any notes or you need to go back over it, make sure you do rewind and rewatch the whole video again. That way you can get all those tips that he mentioned. But for now, I will speak to you all tomorrow. Cheers.